Welcome to Story Hour, a virtual meetup hosted by Wolf and Heron.
I was headed into my first yoga class since the one class I took at the Boulder Free University 15 years prior. That was in the 70s. The room was packed and I hesitated because, there's too many people. But my mom was babysitting my very young kids. My other choice was to go to the gym, but my lower back reminded me why I was there. So I picked up a yoga mat and found a place off to the side. The instructor wore all white clothing and a turban on her head. She was weird. The music was weird. And a lot of the students were also wearing white and turbans and using sheepskins over their yoga mats. They were weird. I was married now and living near Boston, just a couple miles from my hometown. My husband worked all the time and traveled even more. This was not the life I had planned. Being a wife and a mother were not goals that I valued. Intellectually, I knew I had other choices, but I also had a lot of fear and self-doubt about who I was and what I could accomplish. I had made the decision to marry and hoped it would suffice. So I ran a lot, sometimes 40 miles a week, but my back was killing me. I blamed it on the pregnancy. Dan was a big baby, and at 3 years old now, he was huge. After dropping him off at the Montessori preschool, I would go run the woods with my dog, and until one day I couldn't run anymore. And I saw the yoga class in a rec center's newsletter, and so I signed up. We started with a chant, Om Namo Gurudev Namo. I wasn't going to do that, but the sound of 30 people chanting was really powerful. We flexed our spines, we inhaled left, we exhaled right, we did archer pose, standing frog pose, breath of fire, stretch pose. This was Kundalini yoga. Hard, but energizing. I caught myself kind of grinning. The instructor noticed and smiled back. I couldn't help it. I started laughing. I was thinking, what the hell's up with me? I know I was releasing tension and a load of unhappiness, but because I was breathing and moving in ways that I had never done before. But I didn't want them to think I was weird too. Soon it was time for Savasana, the ritual lying on the back and putting a little blankie on and drifting off to sleep, hoping you don't snore. The instructor played this like a lilting chant with a harmonium and a flute. Like, this was nice. But she also said something about if you have any discomfort, don't try and move your bodies to avoid it. Just let it happen. Let it disperse on its own. Breathe into it. Breathe out of it. I haven't been able to lie on my back without bending my knees in a couple of years. The pain brought tears to my eyes. But I did what she said, and I kept my legs flat on the floor. I'd inhale long through the nose, and then I'd exhale, but I was crying. Tears crept down the sides of my face. The pain moved from the lower back, started going up the spine, like it would stop if it found a place where I would cry even more, until it made it up to my upper back, where the pain was unbearable, until it wasn't anymore. The pain was gone. And then she said, move your wrist and your ankles in circles, and then move side to side and sit up, and encourage us to sing along with the tape, which was apparently how you ended a Kundalini yoga class. May the long time sun shine upon you, all love surround you, and the pure light within you guide your way on, guide your way on. I sang quietly, and afterwards she came up to me. She went through the throng of students and came right up to me and put her arm on her hand on my arm and said, "Are you okay?" No one had asked me that in a long time. I nodded yes, and I told her what happened, and she said, well, she had noticed and just wanted to make sure I could drive home. And then she turned to me and said, "You're a teacher. You should teach this." And smiled and went off and talked to some other students. And yeah, right, that shit's not going to happen. Anyway, so I took the Kundalini yoga teacher training, and I taught for 15 years, hoping to bring some healing and comfort to those afflicted with the pain of being human. During that time, I also got a divorce, raised my 2 kids essentially alone, and moved back to Colorado. My back pain never returned, and yet I haven't practiced in years until recently. During the pandemic, I had 2 hip replacements. I'm having a knee replacement. My 25-year real estate career skidded to a halt, and I live alone, and I essentially see nobody because of COVID. But a couple months ago, I picked up my old Kundalini Yoga Sadhana manual and started a little practice of the Spinal Flex series. Now every morning, my dog Frida sits next to me on my mat as I inhale left, exhale right, an easy pose, or I sit on my heels and have my arms up and do, Sat Kriya for 3 minutes. And then after that, I sing Long Time Sun to her, and then we have a really good laugh. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary, for sharing your story. All right. What was powerful about that story? What should Mary hold on to? Lynn.
I really liked, there was little pockets where the description, like my back reminded me why I was here, and I was releasing tension and a load of unhappiness. Those were just so, I can't think of the right word. I just really liked them. I don't know. I felt like there was like an underlying meaning to things more than just what you were saying that I think people could relate to. Even the, "Are you okay?" Well, no one's asked me that in a really long time. There's like a meta story under there that I liked it like that.
Thank you.
What else? Stephanie, and then Molly.
I want to call out, just because you do this so well, Mary, is that you always ground your stories in really like detailed scenes. And so, you open in the yoga studio and we are there, and it's there, and like you move from scene to scene in a way that really creates a story arc. And I appreciate that, especially in your case, a story that takes place over 25 years, 30 years, right? And it's like you're able to kind of find the moments that matter to connect it all, which works really well.
Molly.
I love that story, Mary, and I love that you made yoga can be so inaccessible to people if they haven't ever experienced it. There's different language that you use around positions and different types of yoga, and you made that really accessible for anyone to listen to and be able to relate to, even if they've never taken a yoga class before. And I think that's really a special skill because you did it without jeopardizing the story. So oftentimes I think as storytellers, you have to dance the line between defining things for people, but also not over defining to take it away from the actual story. And so I think you balance that really harmoniously.
Mm-hmm. What are some experiments that Mary can try? Things to play around with next time. I had one, Mary, you were talking so much about your body, and I wanted to see you use your body more.
Oh,
I mean, it's
I
tough.
thought about that. Yeah.
We're at our desks, and like, I know I have horrible posture at my desk, but like when you're talking about laying out, like, is there some openness when you feel open in the story that you can create with your body? When you're talking about breathing, and I can picture you like lying down on a yoga mat, do you incorporate breathing and slow down? And then when you're talking about crying, like how can you just feel like embody that more so that we can feel and see your pain as you're reflecting it and sharing the story? Other thoughts?
I don't know. I mean, I'll offer this as an experiment, not, it really is just an experiment. I think you could have ended your story earlier, just as a way to kind of play with tightening. There was something that I liked about you kind of bringing it to today and being with your dog and finding a new kind of peace and like refinding the yoga as a way to kind of ground you. And I don't know that was necessarily like important for the first part of the story, which is like, I'm unhappy in a marriage with a kid, and like doing the life that I like intellectually knew wasn't the thing that I needed to do, but also I had chosen. Right. And so, it's almost like you could experiment with ending with like leaving the class. You could experiment with ending with, just the one sentence later where you said, okay, I moved back to Colorado, I divorced, I raised my kids on my own, and boom. Right. And just kind of, I don't know, there's a couple of different places you could have stopped and it would shift the point of your story in some ways and maybe give you some more play for what that story could be.
I wonder even if they asked me if I was okay. No one's asked me that in a while. And I said, yes, I'm okay. Even though the life wasn't, like you said, what Stephanie just said, but I'm okay. I'm okay.
Yeah.
I think that's actually when I unmuted myself because I thought that you were done. Like it felt powerful. And I've also noticed that when people have, shorter sentences or shorter phrases, it feels more conclusive and more like an ending versus ending on a run-on or longer sentence. So I think that's something also to play around with is when something feels like an ending, either by intention or not.
I just wanted to say the thing that, I hated that class, but then I loved it. But then I did teacher training. I mean, it was like a 9-month course. What was I doing?
That class changed your life.
That's had an impact on you. Well, thank you everyone for your feedback, and thank you, Mary, for your story.
Visit wolfandheron.com to find out more about our story hours.